What is going on, guys, and welcome to the video. Now, I gotta start first off by saying we are starting so atypically today. I made oatmeal instead of French toast. Crazy, right? All jokes about breakfast aside, guys, today we are going to be talking about how to rework the relationship that you have with fear, how to embrace your fears, and ultimately how to utilize them to your advantage to improve and kickstart your self-development. And we got to start out with a number one question, which is, whoever said that fear is a bad thing? So an early lesson that came up with my therapist that continues to come up is that fear is not a bad thing. It's simply something that we've learned to view as bad. But whoever said that wanting more out of fearing less is bad? All right, so there's two types of fears. We can fear bad things happening, but we can also fear good things not happening. So for example, the fear of being too little, the fear of living too small of a life is what drives me, but I've needed to rework that fear into something that encourages me to live bigger and more positively, as opposed to constantly making choices out of the fear of living too small. Fear can get us to change the world, but it can also make us push away. We need to rework our relationship with fear so that we can learn how to live bigger instead of learning how to hide better. So when we think about fears, we tend to think about things that we can't control. And while, yeah, that's one type of fear, there's also a type of fear that you sign up for. If you choose a fear, if you volunteer to sign up for something that scares you, then you control the pace, the reaction to that thing, the exposure to that thing, and you get to progressively overload on this fear over time. So instead of being thrown into an environment or doing a task that just completely scares you away from even wanting to start it in the first place, you get to slowly chip away at it, increase your confidence, and over time rework the relationship you have to that thing that at one point seemed completely impossible for you to tackle at all. If you practice breaking down these scary fears and work at them consciously and intentionally, then one day, inevitably, when things happen that you can't control for, when we are faced with circumstances or experiences that are thrust upon us that we just need to deal with, instead of collapsing under that pressure or breaking under that fear, you'll have experience and exposure to draw on to say, I've been in a similar situation and I know how to support myself through it. Alright, so we started this video off by talking about the fact that fear is not a bad thing, even though as a society and personally we've learned to view it as objectively bad. We've talked about controlling the controllables and learning to lean into that fear and break it down in a controlled format where we decide and pick our fear and how we want to go about it. And I think this last tip is really going to help anybody who is still a little apprehensive or nervous about leaning into that fear and controlling the controllables and learning that it's not a place that we should sit in, and that is to utilize your fear energy. Alright, so if at this point you're still feeling any sort of hesitation or apprehension about your need to control the controllables and start breaking down the things that scare you, then I'm here to have a little scared straight session with you and tell you what happens to the body and to ourselves when we leave our fears unattended. So in the last session that I just had with my therapist, she said that fear is a sign that we're not supposed to stay where we are. What does she mean by this? Well, when we have fears kick in, there's a fight or flight mechanism that's being triggered in the body. There's something in your environment that your body is telling you to get away from, which means that the logical choice is to move away from the environment or the stimulus or the area that you are in that is triggering that kind of response within you. But what do we do instead? We avoid. We sit on the couch and we intellectualize our feelings. We don't move through the things that bother us. And then instead of approaching those fears in a pragmatic way, which removes our body and our mind from the tension that's caused by that fight or flight stimulus, we leave it inside and it festers and it incubates and we ruminate on it and we drive ourselves crazy for way longer than we would have if we had just confronted that fear head on. I am by no means saying that confronting your fears is easy. They scare me every single day. Just making this video today was so challenging because I spent so much time outside and I really do fear letting people see me record and vlog in public. But ultimately, if you can learn how to rework the relationship that you have with fear, if you can learn to view it as something that is going to bring you towards a healthier, happier state of mind, if you can learn how to view it as something that's going to supercharge your ability to take control in your life and feel like you are on top of the world instead of constantly being crippled by little things that shouldn't have that power over you, that's the kind of reality that I want to live for myself, and that's the reality that I want to push and encourage in this video as well. We all have fear, but fear isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's what you do with your fear that makes it count. So make it count. With that being said, guys, I am going to wrap up the video here. If you like the video, then please drop it a like, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.